All right, welcome to our quick lecture reviewing how to write a hypothesis. My name is Chris Gall, and I'll be your guide for today's lecture. So, really quick, a hypothesis is an educated guess or an educated answer to a question. Okay, it's a projection of what you believe the outcome of your experiment will be. So that means it also must be an explanation of the conditions that must be met for your prediction to come true. Right? And that last part is what we call an operational definition. And I did do another video about operational definitions that you might want to check out if you're not clear about that. Okay, so what's the answer to your question? What do you think the outcome will be? Those two are pretty closely related, right? But also an explanation of the conditions that must be met for your prediction. So how do you know that your prediction has come true? That's really what that comes down to. And sometimes that's easier to tell than others. And we'll dig into that a little more as we go through this. Okay. So how to write a good hypothesis? Good hypotheses have really three parts, really kind of two and a half, because one of them you might need, one of them you might not. Right? An if statement that tells us what conditions must be met. A then statement that tells us what the outcome is going to be. And last but not least, and this is particularly important in psychology, less so than in some sciences like biology and things like that, but an explanation of how we will know the outcome has happened. Okay, so let me give you an example here, or a few actually, right? If a student takes a psychology class, then they will be happier people. That's not really a great hypothesis. It has an if, right? So if a student takes a psychology class, so that's the first part, then they will be happier people. That tells us what the outcome is going to be, but what it's missing is an explanation of how we know that outcome has happened. How do we know that they're happier, in other words? So this is an incomplete hypothesis, right? Happy to me is not necessarily the same thing as happy to you. Is not necessarily the same thing as happy to your best friend or significant other or cousin or mother or things like that, okay? So how are you going to define happy? That's what that one would need, okay? On the other hand, if we've got something like biology, it can be really easy to tell. So this one's not going to require an explanation of how we know the outcome has happened. If it rains outside regularly, then my plants will grow taller. I can tell if the plants grow taller. You can tell if the plants grow taller. It's very easy to tell if plants grow taller, right? If nothing else, you just take a ruler or a measuring tape and you measure before and after. So that doesn't really require an explanation of how we're going to know the outcome has happened because it's self-evident, okay? Another example, right? If I fail my test, then I will have to retake it, right? So we've got our if and our then statements. So if I fail my test, that's the condition that must be met, then I will have to retake it. The outcome will be I will have to retake the test. And this is one where the explanation of how we know the outcome has happened is embedded in it, right? Me needing to retake my test is embedded in the idea of me failing. If I get an A on my test, I don't need to retake the test, right? If I get a B, maybe in my family, Bs are failing, so I need to retake the test. Okay? So that one's pretty self-evident. So take a quick look and pause the video periodically to go through and just identify if these are good hypotheses or not. So psychology students are happier than other students. Pause the video for a moment, think about what you know about hypotheses, and make a decision, yes or no. Okay, no, it's not an if-then statement. Okay, it's not an if-then statement, and it also doesn't meet that third requirement, right? There's no operational definition for happier. How do I know if somebody's happier, right? So it's not a good hypothesis. And hopefully you picked that one up pretty quickly because we were just talking about something similar on the previous slide. So let's try this one. Okay. If it snows a foot overnight, then we will not have school tomorrow. So pause the video, take a moment, and decide if it's a good hypothesis or not. All right, so, oops, there we go. Yes, it has an if-then statement. It makes a prediction based on whether or not something will happen, and we will know how it happened. Okay, we will know how that condition got met. I can go out and look and tell, or stick a ruler in the snow to tell if it snowed a foot, right? And we'll know we don't have school tomorrow because we'll, if you're in my district, you get a phone call, right? You get a phone call, you might get a text message. It goes out to the TV stations and the radio stations, right? But that's a pretty good hypothesis, right? If Miss Gall makes my retake easier, then I will do better than I did. That really should say better than I did the first time. So pause the video again and see what you think. All right, yes, it has both an if-then statement and it makes a prediction, right? So if Miss Gall makes my retake easier, then I will do better than I did, and I know what better looks like. I get a higher score. I don't need to operationally define that. Anybody can recreate this experiment based on the embedded definitions. Okay. So that was our quick review. I'm going to go back here just so you have something to look at. That was our quick review of hypotheses. Okay. Remember, they need to have an if that's a condition to be met, a then, which is the outcome, right? And I need to know how that condition has been met, right? And how that outcome is to be measured. If I take psychology, then I will be happier. Well, how will I know if I'm happier? I don't know. Maybe you do a survey or write a journal entry if you're just experimenting on yourself. You do a journal entry before, you do a journal entry after, and you compare, right? Psychology students are better students than students who take other electives, right? I will know they're better because psychology students will have higher GPAs. Now I've got something that's measurable. If a student takes psychology, then they will have better grades, and I will measure better grades using GPAs. All right, so remember, it's got to have those three parts. And again, if you don't know how operational definitions work, go ahead and take a look at the mini lecture about operational definitions, and that'll help you out. Hit me up with some questions if you've got them, and I will see you in class next time.